What's up, all my Jaguars out there, and welcome to another epic episode of Ralph's Universe, the Reboot. But that's pretty much obvious, don't you think? Let's do it. Alright, Jaguars, here is part 2 of my story of The Ultimate Warrior. Then years later, Hulk Hogan went to WCW and started the epic classic storyline of the New World Order, NWO for short. The writers of WCW, Terry Bollea and Eric Bischoff, had thought that it would be a good idea to turn the character of Hulk Hogan into a heel/bad guy, and Hulk Hogan was leading this evil group, the NWO, to take over WCW, thus taking on the name Hollywood Hogan. You see, it was at this time that WCW was in deep competition with the WWF for ratings. This was all part of the classic Monday Night Wars, as everyone was calling it now. First, everyone believed that it was Terry's idea to create a wrestling character very similar to the Ultimate Warrior called the Renegade. I thought, the Renegade was almost like the Ultimate Warrior. He obviously wasn't as big as the Ultimate Warrior. Sure, he was very muscular, and would display the Ultimate Warrior's intensity, and he acted like the Ultimate Warrior. BTW, it was Terry Bollea and Eric Bischoff who brought the Renegade into WCW, and he was managed by Jimmy Hart. You know what? Now that I think about it, looking back, the Renegade was a real poor and cheap imitation of the Ultimate Warrior. They made the Renegade the WCW TV champion, and I guess he was kind of good, but the Renegade didn't last long at all. Maybe it's because James Hellwig has sent a cease and desist court order to WCW for them to stop having the Renegade on their wrestling show. You see, by this time, as people mentioned on the now popular DVD, The Self-Destruction of the Ultimate Warrior, people said that James Hellwig actually had his name legally changed to The Warrior or Warrior. I'm actually putting quotation marks on those names, and that's how he was able to stop WCW from using the Renegade, since James's real name is now Warrior. He owns the name and the logo, so he didn't want anyone else using it because it's his. But keep in mind that it was the producers and the other staff of the WWF that came up with that name for him, and not to mention help build up the wrestling character, the Ultimate Warrior, and make him famous. Because if it wasn't for the WWF, nobody would know who the Ultimate Warrior was. And I heard that James Hellwig actually brought the WWF on a lawsuit to acquire the name The Ultimate Warrior and stop the WWF from ever using it. In the DVD, The Self-Destruction of the Ultimate Warrior, Ric Flair, Mean Gene Okerlund, Bobby the Brain Heenan, and Eric Bischoff had a real field day with this one. They had a real field day with this name change that James Hellwig had. They really mocked and ridiculed the Warrior for changing his name like that. I even remember Bobby Heenan saying, and I quote, "Maybe tomorrow I'll go and have my name changed to Weasel." Wow, I actually had to chuckle at that. You see, back then, even though Bobby Heenan was known as the brain in the WWF, his adversaries and enemies would call him Weasel, and the fans did too. Back to the original story, James Hellwig had brought up lawsuits on the WWF a few times. That was public knowledge, and James even admitted to sending WCW the cease and desist order to stop having the Renegade on their show since he really resembled the Ultimate Warrior. So that's why WCW had the Renegade drop the TV title and took him out of WCW programming, fearing a lawsuit. Very unbelievable that it had to come to that. You know, all those lawsuits and meetings in courts. Jeez. Are you kidding me on this? And then after all that, years later, Terry Bollea and Eric Bischoff would have the real original Ultimate Warrior, James Hellwig, come into the roster of WCW. Like I mentioned earlier, it was all about trying to compete with Vince McMahon and the WWF at that time and fighting for Monday night ratings. And the Warrior was supposed to help them do just that. Hulk Hogan had already turned evil, and he's leading the NWO to try and destroy WCW. And the Warrior came in as one of the heroes to confront Hollywood Hulk Hogan. Now, when James Hellwig came into WCW, he was going by the name of just Warrior, and he actually got face to face with Hollywood Hogan. And when I witnessed this on WCW Nitro, all sorts of emotions went through me. I really didn't know what to think, but I was real excited as well, because even then I was a fan of the Ultimate Warrior. As for the confrontation itself, on that Monday Nitro, I really feel like the Warrior made a good showing. I mean, he was looking real good and pumped. I really thought that scene was well done. But of course, the experts being Terry Bollea and Eric Bischoff thought differently. They actually said that confrontation sucked, which I find disturbing, and Terry actually blamed, James Hellwig for it. He said that James committed the big no-no in wrestling by telling everyone that he's already beaten Hulk Hogan, so who's going to buy a ticket now? Which I find really odd, but hey, I'm not an expert in wrestling, in the wrestling biz. They are, so the Warrior and Hollywood Hogan were set to do battle at WCW's pay-per-view event, Halloween Havoc. Now, I mentioned this rematch already. I said that no one would be able to duplicate Hulk Hogan versus the Ultimate Warrior at WWF WrestleMania 6, and not even Terry and James Hellwig themselves. But they tried anyway at Halloween Havoc, and they really failed miserably. Now, personally, I don't think that it was the worst match ever, but it wasn't the best match either. I thought Hogan and Warrior's rematch at Halloween Havoc was real good. Some stuff went wrong, but I felt like it was still real good. But others didn't think so. Terry admitted it that he messed up when he was going to try and use the fireball that was part of the script of this match, but it blew up in Terry's face and almost burned him. Damn. Terry admitted that, and I thought it was good of him to do that. But then Mean Gene, who had went to WCW, said that match had stunk and it needed a do-over. Wow. After that, the Warrior had a few more matches at WCW. Eric Bischoff decided that, he did wanted to make Warrior part of the WCW roster and gave him a contract. But then Eric said that the price that the Warrior was asking for was way, way too much, and there was just no way that he could do it. Even Terry mentioned that in order for a wrestler, Terry said that in order for a wrestling superstar to get that kind of fee, she would have to be able to make the company that much more money, and according to Terry, the Warrior just wasn't up there. So because of that, the Warrior was on about 2 more episodes of WCW Nitro, and after that, I nor anyone else ever saw the Warrior or the Ultimate Warrior on TV for about 15 years. Then, after doing some research, I discovered that James Hellwig wrestled his last match on he wrestled his last match on the NWE Wrestling Organization against Orlando Jordan, and I thought that was a real good match. Now, I want to discuss the videos on YouTube that were made by the WWE and James Hellwig, aka Warrior. This is his legal and real name, so I'll refer to him as Warrior. Now, of course, everyone knows that the popular DVD about the Ultimate Warrior's origin story titled The Self-Destruction of the Ultimate Warrior was put together by the staff of WWE, and several current and former WWE superstars did provide commentary on that DVD. In the year 2012, I remember the whole DVD, The Self-Destruction of the Ultimate Warrior, was on YouTube in 2 versions. One was in one whole part lasting about from 1 to 2 hours, and the second version was in several parts, each lasting from 10 to 15 minutes. And I probably had watched this video on YouTube hundreds of times, just like millions of other die-hard wrestling fans did. And I'm going to keep it real here, Jaguars. I really feel like the Self-Destruction of the Ultimate Warrior video was very malicious. It was very malicious towards James Hellwig, and I don't think it was right of them to pick apart and tear apart the Warrior like that. Even though the Warrior may have butted heads with them, that doesn't give the experts of the WWE the right to poke jabs at the Warrior like that. It's wrong, pure and simple. Now, the Warrior uploaded a few videos on YouTube himself, and I'm sure all of the wrestling and Warrior fans have seen all of them. I've seen a few of them. The Warrior made a video tribute to the Macho Man Randy Savage after he passed away due to an auto accident. And then the Warrior made a video to wrestling superstar Kevin Nash. In that video, Warrior had some not so good words towards Kevin Nash. Yeah, he basically went off on Kevin Nash in that video. Now, the one video that I want to discuss is the video that Warrior made about Terry Bollea, Hulk Hogan, and it's called The Ultimate Warrior Shoots on Hulk Hogan. And just like the Self-Destruction of the Ultimate Warrior video, The Ultimate Warrior Shoots on Hulk Hogan is available on YouTube in 2 versions. The full version is in 1 part and it lasts about 55 minutes. And the second version is in about 5 to 6 parts, each lasting about 10 minutes. I really felt like this video that the Warrior made about Terry Bollea was supposed to be his response video to the Self-Destruction of the Ultimate Warrior video, where the staff of the WWE verbally came down on the Warrior. So I figured this new video where Warrior shoots on Hulk Hogan, he would give the staff of the WWE a piece of his mind. And he did do that. But here's the thing. In the video titled The Ultimate Warrior Shoots on Hulk Hogan, the Warrior just singled out and just went off on Terry Bollea. And Jaguars, when I say went off, I do mean the Warrior really went off on Terry Bollea. Warrior was saying all kinds of bad and horrible things about Terry, making accusations and simply airing out Terry's dirty laundry. For example, Warrior was calling Terry all sorts of bad names like dopehead and a piece of shit. Warrior even went on to say that Terry Bollea was a backstabbing liar and manipulator. The Warrior just said that Terry Bollea was such a horrible human being. And then the Warrior also made other accusations like Terry and his ex-wife Linda had an open marriage, meaning that while they were married, both Terry and Linda were sleeping with other guys and girls on the side. Now, I really don't want to go into any details about this video. I believe it is still available here on YouTube. Well, I hope it still is. Oh hell, you've all probably already seen it. When I watched this video for the first time, I just couldn't believe what I saw and what the Warrior was saying about Terry Bollea, aka Hulk Hogan. I'm a real die-hard fan of Hulk Hogan. I've watched him for a long time in both the WWE, WCW, and TNA wrestling. And I've seen some of Terry's movies and TV shows. I even remember watching Terry's TV series, Thunder in Paradise. Now, before watching this video where the Ultimate Warrior is shooting on Hulk Hogan, I've known that Terry made some mistakes in his life, most definitely with the steroid abuse. Yeah, I heard about Terry doing steroids at one time, but I stayed loyal to him and I remained his fan. I mean, he made a mistake, but who hasn't? But after I watched this video by Warrior, my mind was really blown. And I mean blown. Now, I understand if Warrior wanted to give his response to the video that was really malicious to him, and he does have a right to respond to that, but the way he did it was not right, in my eyes at least. One, if this video of his is a response to the self-destruction of the Ultimate Warrior, then why did he just single out Terry Bollea? Way I remember it, in the self-destruction of the Ultimate Warrior video, there were a lot of people saying things about the Warrior, like Eric Bischoff, Mean Gene Okerlund, Vince McMahon, Triple H, Sergeant Slaughter, and Ric Flair, just to name a few. But the Warrior didn't say anything about them in this new video of his in 2012. He just singled out and went off on Terry Bollea. Everything was just Terry Bollea. 2. The things that Warrior was saying about Terry was really unbelievable. The Warrior threw in Terry's ex-wife, his kids, and his friends in the business. And me not knowing either of them personally, I can't really speak for the other wrestling fans that follow both the Warrior and Hulk Hogan. I can only speak for myself by saying this is really crazy. And all these accusations and things that the Warrior is saying about Terry Bollea, I watched this video so much I almost remember the contents of it like the back of my effing hand. Wild accusations, You want to talk about wild accusations in this video? A line I remember the Warrior saying from his video is, I'm quoting this one, You tried to get me to sample some of those thrills. You remember that, Terry? You know, me being the only guy who said no to a lot of things. Terry, I'm betting I'm the only guy that said no to doing your wife. Unquote. Just like the self-destruction of the Ultimate Warrior video, the Ultimate Warrior shoots on Hulk Hogan video is also raw and malicious towards Terry Bollea. Question is, which video was more malicious? I will happily admit that in his video, the Ultimate Warrior shoots on Hulk Hogan. The Warrior did make a lot of good and valid points, and the Warrior did give some good advice to everyone who watched the sport of wrestling. He did give us, or me at least, some good advice on how to be an adult and face reality. and that is really important. Let me put it like this. About 10% of the Warrior's video about Hulk Hogan was real good because Warrior touched on some important issues and points that can really benefit and help the youth of this society. You see, James Hellwig was a very intelligent and great man. He called it like he saw it. He never BS'd anyone. He always kept it real, like I always try to do. That's why I like the Warrior, and I'll always be a fan of the Ultimate Warrior. And I'll always be a fan of Hulk Hogan as well. I'm not taking sides in this. I told you all that. I'm a fan of both of these two great guys. Now, about 90% of the Warrior's video where he's shooting on Hulk Hogan is unfortunately about the Warrior tearing another person down. He's just tearing down Terry Bollea, saying this about him, saying that bad thing about Terry. And when you have a video like that and all it is, well, most of it is just tearing another person down, most people are not going to want to watch that. If they do watch it, they won't watch it for long. The link to the Ultimate Warrior shoots on Hulk Hogan is in the description. I hope that it's still available on YouTube. Now, you won't find the self-destruction of the Ultimate Warrior video because it's gone. Why? It's simple. From what I've been hearing, and like I mentioned before, the Warrior has taken the WWE to court lots of times. The Warrior's attorneys may have probably contacted YouTube and had them remove the self-destruction of the Ultimate Warrior video. Yet, the Ultimate Warrior shoots on Hulk Hogan video is still here. So, go figure. To discuss the working relationship of Terry Bollea and James Hellwig, I have to travel back in time to the era of Hulkamania. Back then, the Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan were like the two big superheroes of the WWF. They did team up a lot of times to battle the bad guys in wrestling, and I, along with other wrestling fans, really ate that up. It was also great to see Hulk Hogan team up with the Ultimate Warrior in tag team matches. Those matches were truly legendary and epic. At least on TV, that's the way it looked. Behind the scenes was a different story. I think it's pretty obvious that James Hellwig didn't really get along with the other talent of the WWF. According to James, the other wrestlers were making a lot of poor choices, and Warrior was saying that he just didn't want to be a part of that. He didn't want to be hanging out with Terry Bollea because of the stuff that he was doing outside of the ring and off the screen. On his website blogs, the Warrior made it sound like he was the perfect role model while everyone else in the WWF was running wild on the streets and in the strip clubs, and Terry Bollea was the worst one. It was a good showing on WWF programming, but according to most of the wrestlers in the back, the Warrior was all about the money and the way that he wanted to do things. So, to answer the question of what kind of working relationship did Terry Bollea and James Hellwig have, I see it like this. The wrestling characters, the Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan, made an epic tag team. But Terry Bollea and James Hellwig didn't get along at all. This year of 2014 is when the Warrior was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame, and I really feel that that was long overdue. The Warrior did contribute a lot to the industry of pro wrestling, no matter which organization he was in. I heard that it was the fans of the Ultimate Warrior, the Warriors, who fought to get the Ultimate Warrior into the WWE Hall of Fame. I knew that there were a lot of people within the WWE who didn't want the Warrior in the Hall of Fame, but apparently the WWE Universe pushed to make it happen. And when I heard that the Warrior would finally be inducted into the Hall of Fame, I was surprised at first and then nervous simply because of the animosity and tensions that Warrior had with the staff over the years, if not decades. I watched as the Warrior was inducted into the Hall of Fame, and it all went well. When the Warrior gave his speech, sure, he brought up some quote-unquote old wounds, but he did it respectfully, and right there he buried the hatchet, and Terry Bollea was there with his family at the front row, just as the Warrior was there with his family. I will be honest with you all, there was a small part of me that really thought that there was actually going to be some drama that night at the WWE Hall of Fame, but that part of me was wrong, and I'm glad that part of me was wrong. Everyone was professional that night, and that was truly epic. When I got the news of the Warrior passing away, it really upset me because he was a guy that I watched as a kid, and he inspired me a lot. I learned a lot from watching the storylines of the Warrior. He was full of energy and passion for this wrestling business. I really feel like James Hellwig paved the way for the new breed of wrestlers in his time. As I make this episode, no one knows the cause of the Warrior's death, but CNN reporter Nancy Grace has reported on her show that the Warrior has admitted to doing steroids at least a few times, which of course I do find very surprising. But no man is without flaws. We've all done things that we regret. In this special two-part episode of the Reboot, I gave my thoughts and feelings on the major aspects of the true wrestling legend, the Warrior. And throughout the years on the social media, including YouTube, a lot of videos were made and a lot of stuff was said. Terry says stuff, the staff of the WWE says stuff, and the Warrior replied to all of that stuff in his own way. I kept it real. I didn't take anybody's side in this big beef, if you want to call it that. I really was very hesitant on doing this because of the way that everyone in this was acting. You know, I don't want to put it out there and say that, Warrior and Terry Bollea were acting like bitter old men on YouTube, but that's exactly the way they were acting. They were acting like bitter old men bickering on YouTube. I mean, both parties were wrong. It is what it is. Terry doing the interviews and Warrior making all these videos to diss people. I feel like it's time to really squash this for the sake of all of the kids that are involved. Terry's kids and the Warrior's kids. Everyone said stuff, so I think we're all even. The legend and spirit of the Ultimate Warrior is most definitely running in me and all of the fans of the Ultimate Warrior, thus making us warriors, thus giving us the ability to bust through any obstacle. Thank you, Warrior, for the intensity that you have given me and all of the warriors in the WWE Universe. The legacy of the Ultimate Warrior will live forever. Peace out. Till the next episode.